Okay, I'm going to start today's class by just welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see all of you guys here. Sawadee Krap. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group, which I'll explain to you guys what that is after we do our meditation, because we start each class with a meditation. What I do here is I help students to understand the path to enlightenment as taught by the Buddha using his original words, because oftentimes what you're seeing in the world with the teachings of the Buddha are not actually his teachings. So it's important to be able to study with the original words of the Buddha. So all the classes, courses, retreats, and everything that I share, all the resources are all based in the original words of the Buddha. What the Buddha did is he figured out how to get to enlightenment. He figured out how to get to this mental state where the mind is completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. And this is something you can experience in this lifetime, where your mind and your life is just becoming better and better through training of your mind. So I'm going to help you guys to get started with just doing some meditation so you guys can learn a little bit about meditation. And then we'll move into the Pali Canon and English study group, and I'll explain to you guys what that is, and then we'll do that together so that you guys can understand some of the teachings of the Buddha. If you would like to join for meditation, we start this with some chanting to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. If you'd like to do the chanting, you're welcome to. There's a laminated sheet over there on the cabinet that you're welcome to help yourself. You can even pass them around the class if you'd like. They're over there on the cabinet, and you'll be able to see what I'm actually chanting. For anybody who's online, you'll see these chanting sheets by going to buddhadailywisdom.com, clicking on free books, and then scrolling down towards the bottom, and you'll see the actual daily chanting sheet there. If you get one of these chanting sheets, you're going to see that there's English translations, and you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha in these chants. It's important to understand the origins of chanting. Where chanting started from is during the lifetime of the Buddha. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. So there isn't anything mystical or magical about chanting. It's not a rite, it's not a ritual, it's not a ceremony, it's not worship, it's not prayer or anything like this. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they only used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory, because everything that he taught was oral. So 2,500 years ago, they didn't have the technology to write things down. So they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory so that they could then practice the teachings on a day-to-day basis. So if you chant along with me, just understand that this isn't a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship or prayer or anything like that. If you've been exposed to those kinds of things as part of the teachings of the Buddha, that's not the teachings of the Buddha. He never taught any rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer, because that's not what's going to train your mind to be able to experience this enlightened mental state. So when you chant along, you can just understand today we use it in order to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. As I mentioned, if you look at the English translations, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha even created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death. Because if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger and sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings to this peaceful and joyful mental state that is enlightenment, and it's a permanent mental state that you will never experience any of those discontent feelings ever again. And this teacher didn't want anything or expect anything from you. They just helped you out of the kindness of their heart to be able to get to this enlightened mental state. You'd probably have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. So that's where I suspect that these came from, because a Buddha wouldn't walk around handing out chants and saying, "Here, chant this to me out of respect for me." This would be ego and arrogance and looking down on people. And he wouldn't have done that kind of thing. So I suspect that these came from his students, either during his life or after his death. But if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to, because it does help you get more benefit out of the meditation. Once we're in the meditation, I'm going to be providing you some guidance to help you during the meditation to be able to actually meditate and be learning how to meditate while we're actually meditating together. Then there'll be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're just all meditating at the same time. Everyone here and everyone online will just all be meditating at the same time. Now, I'm sure during that period of quietness, you'll probably hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car go by. You might hear a bird chirping, a dog barking. I heard some construction a little bit ago. Sounds like they're having some construction across the street. You're going to hear sounds occasionally. You can't be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. It's just not possible because you live in an impermanent world. And if your mind craves permanent quietness, when you hear a sound, you're going to cause your mind to be frustrated or annoyed. It's your own mind that's doing that. Oftentimes people think that it's other people that are causing them to be angry or frustrated, but it's actually your own mind that's doing that because it's craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world. So if you don't have that craving during the meditation, where you're longing, yearning for permanent quietness, and you just understand the world around you is impermanent, and there's going to be sounds that arise, that change and fade away, you can reside peaceful and joyful, understanding that the world is functioning exactly the way that it was intended to function with all of this impermanence. So we're going to have that period of time where it's just quiet and we're just meditating together. Then we're going to come out of that with some more chanting, and then that's where I'll start today's class and helping you guys to understand the Pali Canon and English study group. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times because your body can't be in the same position permanently because this body is impermanent and everybody's going to find different things to be comfortable. So I'm going to share some guidance with you to help you understand the seated position because this is where people usually start off in the seated position. But just understand what I share with you are recommendations, things for you to consider because everybody's body is different. You can sit however you're comfortable. This practice is about training your mind, not training the body. But sometimes people need some support and understanding about the body in order to be able to help them get more comfortable for meditation. So I'll share some thoughts with you and then you can decide to implement these things if you like, but you can even sit any way, even if it's not something that I've taught you, you can sit however you like. Or there's these other positions as well. So there's the ability to sit on the floor, on a chair. Maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, anything like this. You can sit however you're comfortable. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of soften your seat. And then if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you like to just do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, this can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Then some people like to put their legs off the mat. You might decide to try that if you'd like. That'll get your hips up in the air and it'll lessen the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. So that's an option for you as well. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If you would like to use this, you can. But again, it's not about everyone doing it the same way because that would be permanence and everybody's body is a bit different. So there's other options. If you'd like to try some of these out, you might find something else to be comfortable. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. If someone's on a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, you might decide to put your feet flat on the floor or crossed at the ankles. Those are options, but there's other options as well. You can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed, so that's an option as well, right? So there's many different ways to sit. And then for anybody in a chair, a bench, or sofa or wheelchair, you can also put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of the upper body, it's helpful if this is erect with your sternum up and your shoulders back. It'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you would like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation to be able to actively train the mind. By having your sternum up and your shoulders back, it not only helps to keep your mind attentive and alert, but it'll make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Because if you were slouched like this, not only would your mind be inattentive or unalert, potentially a little bit sluggish, but it makes it hard to kind of breathe. But also if you were real rigid and like this, your mind could be overactive or uptight, right? So you like to be in the middle where your sternum is up and your shoulders back, nice and comfortable. It'll keep your mind attentive and alert and also make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to start us off with some chanting, which you guys are welcome to join in on, and then I'll come back in with some guidance on the meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanang Apiwateyami Sawakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakawato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakatoro Kawitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาโอตังมหาเกวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโอโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, I would like to welcome all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. As I was sharing, today is our Pali Canon and English study group, and this is where we study the words of the Buddha to help students to be able to understand what the Buddha actually taught. We have various programs here at this temple where you can actually learn to develop your practice and get closer and closer to this enlightened mental state that the Buddha taught. Let me share a little bit with you about what enlightenment is. Even though I shared a little bit at the beginning, let me share a little bit more. What enlightenment is it's a mental state that you acquire in this life by training your mind. You can train your mind to get to the point where it's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, where you no longer experience any discontent feelings. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are eliminated from the mind because you've trained the mind to uproot the causes and conditions that are producing it. Oftentimes people think that what's causing these feelings is something external. You might think your mom and dad are frustrating you, or your brothers and sisters are annoying you, or your boss is irritating you, or something of this nature. But this isn't actually true. This is what the mind believes in the unenlightened state, but it's a false belief. That with belief, you don't know what's true or false because you're just believing it. But when you study the teachings of the Buddha, you can investigate and examine them and see through independent verification and through practice of his teachings that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And that's why you can eliminate them. If it was other people who was causing you to be angry and frustrated and all these other discontent feelings, you would never be able to eliminate them because you can't teach 8 billion people in the world to do things your way. Because the mind in the unenlightened state, it'll get happy when it gets what it wants, but it will get sad or angry or frustrated when it doesn't get what it wants. By the time you get to enlightenment, you've uprooted certain pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind. And you do that through training of the mind. And when you uproot these pollutions, the mind will be performing optimally. You'll notice that the mind is focused. You'll have concentration, clarity, and deep memory. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming because you don't have any bitterness and harshness and hostility in your mind any longer. So when you're interacting with people, you'll be loving and kind and warm and gentle with people, and you'll see that that's what will come back to you. But as long as you're bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships, that's what's going to come back to you. Whatever you put out, that's what's coming back to you. You can see in those relationships where you're having challenges with that you notice that there's maybe you're bitter, harsh, and hostile, thinking that it's the other person who's causing that. And then when you put that out, you see that that's what comes back to you in those relationships. But you can get to a point where you transform your mind and you no longer experience this, where you can be loving and kind and warm and gentle with everybody around you. And because of this, you're going to see your personal and professional relationships really blossoming. They will be at ease. All your relationships will be harmonious. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're not even in a bad mood anymore. It's physically impossible for you to experience a bad mood. So again, this comes through training of the mind. And there's various programs that I have here that will help you to understand about the teachings of the Buddha. In fact, this afternoon at 1 p.m., I'm going to be teaching an introduction to the Teachings of the Buddha course, which is only 3 hours, where you can actually learn about the teachings of the Buddha from afar. And then I'm going to share with you his very first teaching. It's called the Four Noble Truths. In 4 simple statements that I'm going to share, that you'll be able to independently verify. You'll be able to understand the problem in your mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward of how to actually fix it. And this is the very first teaching of the Buddha where you can have a breakthrough and you can finally understand once and for all what's causing these discontent feelings so that you can actually eliminate them. Because as long as you go around the world thinking that it's other people that are causing these feelings, you'll never actually be able to solve it, because you'll be pushing people away out of your life, or you'll be pushing the situation out of your life. You might have done this where you've pushed away friends or family member out of your life and you think that's going to solve the problem, but you can see that it doesn't, because your mind still gets angry or frustrated or annoyed. Or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile with people, putting through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another individual. And you can see this doesn't solve the problem either, because those people tend to just go away from you because they're not interested in being around bitterness and harshness and hostility. Or you might put your expectations on people, trying to control them and forcing them to do things your way. And you might even have people doing this to you too, where they're pushing you away. They're being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, and they're putting their expectations on you. And this is just a misunderstanding of what the real problem is, that the mind thinks that the problem is something external, and it thinks the way to solve it is to push away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or put expectations on people. And it's never going to solve your anger and your frustration, or your loneliness, your boredom, and your stress and your anxiety. It's never going to solve that. So this afternoon at 1 p.m., I'm going to share with you a bit about the teachings of the Buddha from afar, just kind of as a survey and kind of overlooking the teachings. And then I'm going to drill into them in detail, helping you to understand the Four Noble Truths, his very first teaching. And I'm going to walk you through it in a way that you can independently verify, because nothing in the teachings of the Buddha is based in belief. With belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because either someone convinced you to believe it or you convinced yourself to believe it. And with belief, you can't get to wisdom. That's what you need in order to get to enlightenment. When we talk about awakening to enlightenment, what you're doing is you're cultivating wisdom about the world around you. The Buddha didn't teach rules and commandments. He didn't teach you the way the world should be. He's teaching you the way the world is. And when you don't understand the way the world is and what the natural laws are, you will go through the world struggling and having difficulties. That's what the anger and the sadness and the frustration is. That's what the broken relationships are. That's what those difficulties and struggles are showing you, is that there's certain things about this world that you just don't know yet. You just don't understand. And you don't need to feel guilty or shameful about that. But if you embrace that and you understand that that's the case, now you can take action to be able to resolve that through learning and growing and developing to cultivate wisdom. And now you can navigate the world peacefully when you understand how the world is. Because like I said, the Buddha didn't teach the way the world should be. And if everyone follows rules and commandments, the world will become a better place. He's teaching you the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, you'll be able to navigate it more peacefully. So that's what I'm going to be doing this afternoon at 1 o'clock. On Monday, I'm going to be starting a 5-day course from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And you can come to any part of this that you like. Of course, if you're here for the whole entire course, you're going to get the most benefit. But from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Monday through Friday, I'm going to be sharing a Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course. This is a really great place to get started and really get soaked into the teachings of the Buddha. We base all of that on this first book. It's called Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This is developed based on the original words of the Buddha, and you can get this for free. It's available for you. You can download it from our website. You can take it and go print it if you like. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for our printing cost, or you can get it on Amazon if your country has access to Amazon. That's the best place to get started in the very first book. This particular program is called the Pali Canon and English Study Group. And we have other programs and retreats too, but this particular program is called the Pali Canon and English Study Group. What the Pali Canon is it's 45 large volumes of books that are about this thick. This is the largest, most complete collection of the teachings of the Buddha that exist in the world. It's 45 large volumes like this. And what we've done is we've consolidated this into 13 books that make it more accessible for you to be able to understand. And in the various programs that I have, they can last anywhere from this afternoon for 3 hours all the way up to, we have a year and a half programs, even 6-year programs for our teacher training program, right? So there's all these different programs that you could explore if you were interested, and it's all available to you at no cost. This Pali Canon and English Study Group, what it is more like a study group, because all those other programs, I teach in more of a traditional style where I'm going to be teaching for like 15, 20, 30 minutes, opening up for questions, teach for 15, 20, 30 minutes, open up for questions. Where this particular program, we do it more as a study group, where I have the original words of the Buddha here from our book series. It's behind this. And what we do is I invite somebody here at the temple or someone online through Zoom to be able to read a particular chapter. Then after someone reads it, I will share some teachings on that. Then I will open up to any and all questions that you guys have related to that particular chapter. These chapters are sometimes just like a paragraph or two because they're an excerpt from the original words of the Buddha. Now, this program, the Pali Canon English Study Group, it goes from volume 2 of our book series all the way up to volume 13. And normally before someone comes into this program, they've already studied one of our foundational programs before. But I know many of you guys haven't done that yet. You might have just been popping in for some meditation and not really knowing what we're going to be teaching today, and that's fine. You're going to learn plenty today as part of being here, but just understand that where we are in this Pali Canon English Study Group is in volume 11. So you're going to probably hear some things and see some things in the teachings of the Buddha that are beyond where you currently understand. But I'm going to help you to understand it. Even if you've never studied the words of the Buddha ever in your life, I'm going to help you to be able to understand what he's teaching through helping you to read. As we read the chapters, you'll be able to understand it, and then I'll share some teachings to be able to help you. So this book that we're in, it's actually volume 11. It's titled The Realms of Existence. This is the book that the Buddha is helping you to be able to understand the realm of hell, the animal realm, the afflicted spirit realm, which is the ghost realm, the human realm, and the heavenly realm. As I mentioned to you, there's nothing in the teachings of the Buddha that is based in belief, including these realms of existence and the cycle of rebirth. Sometimes people think you just have to believe these things. This isn't actually true. You can independently verify the 5 realms of existence and the cycle of rebirth. You might not have the wisdom of how to do that right now, but if you progress on this path, you can gain that wisdom to understand how to independently verify these things. But what you're going to be learning today is about teachings from, I think the first one is from the animal realm. Yeah, we're in the animal realm now. So understand this isn't where somebody will typically start their journey on the path to enlightenment. So we're going to be exploring these chapters that are from volume 11, but if you haven't started with the foundation yet, there's all these other opportunities for you to be able to do that. So if you would like to volunteer to read, if you're here at the temple, or when you get to the question period, if you have a question, we have microphones in the middle of the room in the white bowl. If you could just get the microphone, press the gray button, the lights are going to come on, and you can just hold that up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then if you would like to keep these microphones with you, you're more than welcome to do that, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share your microphone. And if you could just turn it off when you're not using it, because then we won't get feedback through the speakers, that'd be really nice. And then for anybody who's online, if you're in Zoom and you'd like to volunteer to read, just electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and then we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. And then if you're asking questions, again here, if you guys could use the microphones, but online, if you ask questions, whether you're in Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom, you can put that into the comment section, and I'll be able to see that. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and open up your mic to ask questions that way too. So I'll show you guys how this Pali Canon English Study Group works, which is very unique, and this is the only program that we do it this way. So would somebody like to volunteer to read this very first chapter, either here at the temple or on Zoom? Yeah, Terrence, please, yeah. Help yourself. Just takes a second for it. There it goes.
Chapter 31, the serpents. Now at that time, a certain serpent was troubled about his birth as a serpent. He was ashamed of it, loathed. Then it occurred to that serpent, by what means could I be freed quickly from birth as a serpent and get back to the human realm? Then it occurred to that serpent, these ascetics, sons of the Sakyans, are teachings farers, even farers, Brahma farers. They are truth speakers. They are of moral habit, of good conduct. Now, if I were to go forth among the ascetics, sons of the Sakyans, so would I be led quickly from birth as a serpent and could get back to that human realm? Then that serpent, in the form of a Brahmin youth, having approached the monks, asked for the giving forth. The monks let him go forth. They ordained him. Now at that time, that serpent, together with a certain monk, was living in a dwelling place on the edge of town. Then that monk, getting up in the night towards dawn, paced up and down in the open air. Then that serpent, confident that the monk had gone out, fell asleep. The whole dwelling place was full of the snake. His coils were protruding through the windows. Then that monk, thinking, I will enter the dwelling place, opening the door, saw the whole dwelling place full of the snake, his coils protruding through the windows. Terrified at seeing this, he let out a cry of distress. Monks, having run up, spoke thus to that, why did you, venerable sir, let out a cry of distress? Venerable sir, the whole dwelling place is full of a snake. His coils are protruding through the windows. Then that serpent, awakened because of this noise, sat down on his seat. Monk spoke thus, who are you, friend? I am a serpent, honored sirs. But why did you, friend, act in this way? Then that serpent told this matter to the monks. The monks told this matter to the perfectly enlightened one. Then the perfectly enlightened one, on this occasion, in this connection, having had the community of monks come together, spoke thus to this serpent. Indeed, you serpents are not able to growth in these teachings and discipline. You serpent, go away, observe the observance day precisely on the 14th, 15th, and 8th day of the half month. Thus you will be freed quickly from birth as a serpent and get back to the human realm. Then that serpent, thinking, it is said that I am not liable to growth in these teachings and discipline, pained, shedding tears, departed, having let out a cry of distress. Then the perfectly enlightened one addressed the monks, saying, "Monks, these are the two cases of observation of a serpent's true nature, when he indulges in sexual intercourse with a female of his own species, and when he falls asleep in confidence. Monks, these are two cases of observation of a serpent's true nature. Monks, if an animal is not ordained, it should not be ordained. If it is ordained, it should be expelled."
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, we have a little bit of impermanence with our microphone there. It's cutting in and out. So let me help you understand what the Buddha is talking about here. That this is actually connected to something that you see in the temples a lot. I talk about this when I take students on tours, like next Friday. I'll be taking, or this Friday coming up, I will be taking students on a tour to Wat Umong and Wat Doi Sitep. You can come just for that if you like. We're going to start here at 9 a.m. in the morning, but it's part of that course that I talked about next week. So all these temples, a lot of them, you will see these snakes at the foot of the stairs. If you ever go around to the temples, here at this temple, you can see that they've put snakes there. A lot of these temples are, 300, 400, 500, even 700 or 1,000 years old, because this story has been around for a really long time. And this is something that is found in the Pali Canon, the original teachings, that they ultimately documented the teachings of the Buddha shortly after his death. While during his lifetime, they didn't have the technology to write things down. Shortly after his death, they did. So they started writing his teachings down, because by the time you get to enlightenment, you will have a deep, profound memory. You will remember the teachings that it took for you to get to enlightenment. That during the lifetime of the Buddha, he helped countless people get to enlightenment. So there were countless people who had gotten to enlightenment during his lifetime. And then shortly after his death, about 500 of them came together and they documented his teachings. And this is something that happened during the lifetime of the Buddha. And I usually tell this story to help people to understand why these snakes are at the base of the stairs. It's because of this right here, that when this particular snake was around individuals during the lifetime of the Buddha, and I don't know that this story is particularly true or false. This is kind of an outlandish story, but what the story says here and some other places is that there was this snake that was able to transition themselves to look like an ordained practitioner, to look like a human being, and that they ordained this individual thinking that they were a human being. And now when this snake fell asleep, that's where it kind of busted out and started to become a snake again, because it fell asleep and it kind of lost its consciousness and now started looking like a snake again. And this was brought to the attention of the Buddha. And the Buddha was saying, like, this snake shouldn't be among us, because if it is, now people are going to be scared, people are going to be fearful, and it's going to be challenging to be able to teach while this snake is around. And it's not the snake that's causing people to be fearful, it's one's own craving, desire, attachment within their own mind. On your way to enlightenment, you'll have fear, but by the time you get to enlightenment, there's no fear at all. You won't even have a fear of death. You won't have a fear of anything, because your mind has eliminated all the causes and conditions that produce it. So this particular story, the Buddha is helping them to understand that they shouldn't ordain animals as part of the ordained path. They should be human beings, because animals actually can't get to enlightenment. That's why he's saying here that that a snake is unable to, I forget exactly where it's at. Here it is right here, that they're not able to grow in these teachings, meaning that they're not able to get to enlightenment. The lower realms of hell, animal, and afflicted spirits, they can't actually get to enlightenment because they aren't able to cultivate their mind enough to be able to get to enlightenment. But in the human realm and the heavenly realm, they're able to do that. So the Buddha is saying, hey, these animals can't get to enlightenment. They need to get to a human birth in order to be able to get to enlightenment. So we shouldn't be ordaining them. And if they are ordained, then we should expel them. So the Buddha was said to have expelled this particular snake. You can see where he says it here, that he says, you should leave, essentially, up here. Yeah, up here. He talks about, having the snake leave. And that's the reason why you see the snake at the base of the stairs of these temples, because the snake is reported to have said, well, if you're not going to let me learn your teachings, I'm going to go stand outside and I'm going to stand guard. And if anybody comes into the teaching area where you're teaching and they have ill will towards your teachings, I'm not going to let them pass by. So that's why we see these statues of the snakes that are reminding you that an enlightened being doesn't have any fear. That the Buddha didn't have any fear of this snake because he understood he didn't cause any harm to this snake, so no harm's going to come to him. So that's one of the things that you can remember when you see these snakes, that an enlightened being doesn't have any fear. Another thing you can understand when you see these snakes or these statues is, thank goodness you're in the human realm, because you can actually get to enlightenment. In the animal realm, they can't get to enlightenment. So don't allow this human life to go to waste. Don't be complacent. Apply effort and energy towards the development of your mind to make your way to this peaceful and joyful mental state. And then the third thing that these snakes can remind you of, these statues, can remind you not to have ill will towards the teachings of the Buddha. What it means to have ill will towards the teachings of the Buddha is that if you were going to change the teachings of the Buddha, that is going to cause harm to you and to countless people in the world when you change the teachings. Because that's exactly what's happened over 2,500 years from the lifetime of the Buddha. People have changed his teachings. And because of that, there's a lot of people in the world that are confused and don't really understand what the teachings of the Buddha are. If you see rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship and prayer associated with the teachings of the Buddha, none of that is the teachings of the Buddha. He didn't teach anything mystical or magical during his lifetime. There isn't anything auspicious or superstitious about his teachings. He's teaching you to train your mind and get to this enlightened mental state. And you can't do that through rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship. So there's no amount of water that I can sprinkle on you that's going to make your life better. There's no amount of strings that I can tie on your wrist that are going to make your life better. There is no way that another human being can give you a blessing and it's going to make your life better. If you would like to see things improve in your life, you're going to need to cultivate wisdom, make better decisions, and you will experience better results. There's a cause and effect, or action and result. It's your own decisions that are leading to any particular result. There's nothing that another human being can do in terms of saying words to you or sprinkling water on you that is going to instantly and magically make your life better. Everything you experience is a result of your decisions. So when you cultivate wisdom and you become wiser and wiser and you make better and better decisions, you will experience improved results in your day-to-day life. This is the natural law of Gama, or some people refer to it as karma. That's the Sanskrit version of the word. And the Pali version is Gama. So people who study the original teachings of the Buddha will tend to use the Pali word, which is Gama. It's referring to the same natural law, which is cause and effect, or action and result, the results of your decisions. When you make decisions wisely or unwisely, you will experience wholesome Gama, or wholesome results, or you will experience unwholesome Gama, or unwholesome results. And when you lack wisdom of this natural law, you will tend to go around the world and make unwise decisions because you just don't know what you don't know. So as you go out into the world and you're making unwise decisions, you might be experiencing unwholesome results in your life, or unwholesome Gama. And what we tend to do in the unenlightened state with a lack of wisdom is blame that on other people. When you experience unwholesome results coming back to you, you might blame it on other people. Or you might think it's good luck or bad luck, or destiny or fate. Or you might think there's some being like God or the universe that is controlling what you experience. Or you might think it's other people that are controlling what you experience. And if you keep thinking this way, you'll never actually be able to cultivate wisdom to make different decisions and experience different results. So the teachings of the Buddha aren't about rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. It's about cultivation of wisdom and cultivating wisdom about this natural law so that you can make wiser and wiser decisions and experience more and more wholesome results, or wholesome Gama, in your day-to-day life. One of the wholesome results you experience through learning and training in the teachings of the Buddha is you get to a point where you don't have anger anymore. You have no frustration, no agitation, all those other things that I talked about as part of the benefits of getting to enlightenment. So as long as an individual subscribes to the thinking that it's good luck or bad luck or destiny or fate or God or some other entity that's causing the things you experience, or it's other people that are causing the things that you experience, you'll never be able to cultivate wisdom by looking inward and seeing what it is that you can do in order to make wiser and wiser decisions. So you can awaken to this wisdom through training of the mind. So since this animal couldn't do that, the Buddha asked this animal to leave, right? And because he was trying to train these human beings how to get to enlightenment, and because they were not yet enlightened, there was some fear that was coming up in their mind. And he asked the snake to leave. And that's why you see these statues at the base of the stairs, to remind you that an enlightened being doesn't have fear, that thank goodness you're human, that you're in this human realm. Don't allow it to go to waste. Don't be complacent. Apply effort and energy to learn and grow and develop on the path, and not to have ill will towards the teachings. And having ill will would be to change them. And as I've mentioned, many people have changed them over the years. But what you would like to do is cultivate wisdom about this natural law of Gama. Because if there's anything in your life that you don't particularly care for, and you would rather that thing not happen, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. But if it's good luck, bad luck, destiny or fate or God or some other entity or other people who are causing things in your life, you're stuck. You can't change anything, because you can't change good luck or bad luck. You can't change destiny or fate. You can't change God or some entity called the universe, and you can't change other people. But when you come to understand true reality, that it's your own decisions that are leading to any particular result, then that's very empowering. Because now, like I said, if there's anything that you don't particularly care for that's going on in your life, just cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results in your day-to-day life. So this is a great little story to help you understand these three important points and understand what the Buddha's ultimate goal is to help you cultivate wisdom to awaken the mind to making wiser and wiser decisions in your day-to-day life. So do you guys have any questions on this particular chapter? Remember, online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. And then those of you guys here, if you could use the microphones, that'd be great. Maybe we could even get different microphones, because it sounds like the batteries on that one are running out. Yeah. All right, no questions here. Let me see if I have anything online here. Welcome to everyone online. Nice to see all of you guys this morning. You have a question, ma'am? Yeah, you just need to press the gray button and just wait a second or so.
Hello?
There you go.
It works? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here it says that how he could get back to the human realm. So I was wondering, well, was he a human before? And
yeah, that's what this is sharing, is that this being was a human in the past, and they were born down into the animal realm, because none of these realms are permanent. And it's not any being that's sending you to any of these particular realms. It's your own decisions that are producing a particular result. So the hell realm, the heavenly realm, oftentimes people are taught that these are permanent places and that somebody else is sending you to these places, and that's not actually true. It's your own decisions and the condition of your mind. By at the time of death, whatever the condition of your mind is, that's what's going to determine where your rebirth is. So if you've gotten to enlightenment, there isn't any rebirth in the cycle of rebirth. An individual has escaped that. But if you haven't gotten to enlightenment, then you can be reborn in any of the 5 realms. And it sounds like this being was once in the human realm, was reborn, and probably had lives before that too, but then got reborn into the animal realm. And now the ultimate goal would be to get back to the human realm so that you can ultimately start working on your mind to get to enlightenment. Because getting to enlightenment would be the very best thing for you and everybody around you, because by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind's so peaceful and so joyful, and you're not causing harm to anyone around you whatsoever. And you have the wisdom to even help other people if they would ask you questions about how to make their way to enlightenment. So yeah, you're exactly seeing that correct, that's what this discourse is sharing, is that this being was a human at one point. And all of us have had countless lives. So this isn't your first life. Right now, you might be believing that this is your first life, but you don't have any evidence that this is your first life, other than the fact that you can't maybe remember your past lives at this particular point. But if you start training your mind and you start eliminating the pollution out of your mind, Oftentimes people will see their past lives, or they will start to have communication with beings in these other realms, or some people can actually see these beings in other realms. And if you start having that experience and you understand that that's true reality and the way the world truly works, your mind can stay stable and steady. But if you didn't understand that those memories that you were having are from a past life, it could really shake you up. Like if you started having vivid memories that you were murdered, that wasn't in this life. So that could really shake you up. And if you started having these repeating memories in your mind of being murdered, or you started seeing formless beings, like beings from hell, beings from the afflicted spirit realm, or heavenly beings, you might think you're going crazy. Or if you start having communication with these beings, where you're hearing beings that you can't see, you're hearing them speak, this could really shake you up. You could think that you're having difficulties and struggles, and you can understand that this is true reality. This is the way the world works. And oftentimes people are relegated to medication for these kinds of things, thinking there's something wrong, where in reality, an individual could just understand that this is normal and then train their mind to ignore it. Just like you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody might be speaking a little bit loudly and you can ignore that. You can do the same thing when you hear these voices from the hell realm, the afflicted spirit realm, or the heavenly realm. You can just ignore it. But if you don't understand that that's what that is, you might think you're going crazy, and now you might start having all kinds of difficulties. So the Buddha taught these kinds of things for a reason, because it's true reality and it helps you to understand the world around you. You have a question, sir?
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if my question is quite relevant, but I suppose after studying this, hopefully we make wise decisions in the future. But I'm wondering, how do we actually deal with the past then? Like, for instance, I did something wrong in the past.
Mm-hmm. You mean the past in this life, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So decisions that you've made in the past, you are going to need to experience the unwise decisions. Like those unwise decisions, they produced unwholesome results for you. And you're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to experience that. But if you learn these teachings and you gain the wisdom of how to interact in the world and these natural laws, as those unwholesome results are coming back to you, you will know how to extinguish it. Right? So I'll give you an example. Say in the past, 3 years ago, I filled out some tax forms and I lied on the tax forms. Maybe I even knew it was unwise to lie, but I still did it because I was trying to hide my money and I didn't want the government to take my tax money. So I lied 3 years ago. Well, now in the present moment, 3 years later, I get this notice that the government says, hey, we found an error on your tax report. You owe us $1,000 from the original amount. You owe us $1,000 interest, and you owe us $1,000 penalty. You owe us $3,000. This is my unwholesome karma coming back to me from my decision 3 years ago to lie on my tax form. And now in the present moment, if I didn't know the teachings of the Buddha, I might rip up the notice and throw it away, thinking that I can run and hide from this. Or I might call up the government and yell and holler and scream at them and tell them how bad they are. Or I might write them a nasty letter, right? These are all things that we do when we lack wisdom of these natural laws. But if you understand the natural laws, that, hey, this is from your decisions. Nobody caused this but you. It was your own decisions that led to this. And calling up the government and yelling and hollering at people, that's the last thing you're interested in doing, is putting out harshness and hostility and bitterness, or writing a letter to them. And if you know you can't run and hide from this, ripping it up and throwing it away, that's very unwise. So maybe what you do, if you understand these teachings that you need to extinguish this unwholesome karma, is maybe you call up the government or you write them a letter and you say, hey, I'm so sorry, I apologize. I take full responsibility for this, and I would like to make amends. I would like to fix this. But I don't have $3,000. I am so sorry, sir. I'm so sorry, ma'am. I don't have $3,000. And now they might say, you've been very polite. You've been very kind. I tell you what, we'll drop off the penalty and the interest. Just pay us the $1,000 and we'll be fine. And they're like, oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, sir. I really appreciate that, ma'am. But I don't even have $1,000. I'm so sorry. Is there something we can do to work this out? And they say, well, how about a payment plan? How about if we work out a payment plan where maybe over the next several months, you can pay us $50 or $100 or what have you, and then you can pay it all off in that way. Oh, perfect. That sounds great for me. Yeah, I'd like to do that. Right? right? So now you've extinguished this unwholesome karma that's come back to you. But you've done it through this wisdom of the teachings of the Buddha, using things like we call right intention, right speech, right, where you're interacting in wise ways. Instead of being bitter and harsh and hostile, because that's just going to produce more unwholesome karma, you decide to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. But the Buddha gives you exact guidance of how to do that, not as rules and commandments, but just to help you understand the natural laws of how to interact with people in wise ways that is going to produce wholesome benefits for you. So this is an example how when something comes back to you, you can extinguish it. And you're going to need to extinguish it in order to be able to get to enlightenment. Because by the time you get to enlightenment, you're not experiencing any unwholesome karma. You've extinguished all your unwholesome karma. So let's just say you could snap your fingers today and instantly practice the teachings of the Buddha, which you can't, but let's just say you could. You're still going to experience unwholesome results for a period of time, multiple years, and you're going to need to extinguish that. So what you're doing on the path to enlightenment as you're first getting started for the first several years is you're developing your practice to get up and running with the teachings of the Buddha, and then you need to live your life that way for an extended period of time so that as all your unwholesome karma is coming back to you, you're extinguishing it. And now you extinguish all your unwholesome karma by living this life for an extended period of time. And then eventually you get to the point where there's no unwholesome karma coming back to you. This is one of the reasons why your mind is so peaceful and joyful in the enlightened mental state, because there's nothing unwholesome coming back to you. There's nothing happening to you. I mean, you'll experience people gossiping and slandering you, right? You'll experience that still in other things like this. You'll still be sick. You'll still be ill. You'll still have a car accident here or there, things like that, because you can't eliminate those kinds of things, right? You can't eliminate sickness, aging, death, loss, and destruction. You will always experience those no matter how enlightened you are. But when these things are happening, you won't be affected by it. So say someone gets on Facebook and starts gossiping and slandering you to everybody. Your mind will be completely peaceful and joyful because you understand that that is that person's unwise decisions, and it's not a reflection of you, and that's not how you truly think, and that's not how you truly function, but that person's mind is thinking that way and functioning that way, so it won't affect your mind. You'll be completely peaceful and joyful even when those kinds of things are happening. So you can extinguish your unwholesome karma that's coming back to you. So you gradually build up your practice and then live your life that way for an extended period of time. And this afternoon is when I'm going to teach the very first teaching that someone would need to get started for that.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right. I don't see any other questions anywhere. So let's go to the next chapter. All right. This is chapter 32. Would somebody like to read this one? This is a very short chapter, just like a little half a page here. Amen? Yeah. You might decide to get a different mic. That one's a little bit, battery's a little bit weak.
Four modes of generation of Nagas. Monks, there are these four modes of generation of Nagas. What for? 1. Nagas born from eggs. 2. Nagas born from the womb. 3. Nagas born from moisture. 4. Nagas born from spontaneous birth. Therein, monks, Nagas born from the womb, from moisture, and born spontaneously are superior to Nagas born from eggs. Nagas born from moisture and born spontaneously are superior to Nagas born from eggs and from the womb. Nagas born spontaneously are superior to Nagas born from eggs, from the womb, and from moisture. These monks are the four modes of generation of Nagas.
Okay, so let me give you guys some background on this. The Buddha, when he was teaching 2,500 years ago, he was born in Nepal and he was teaching in Northeast India. And 2,500 years ago, they didn't have a really strong educational system the way we do now, right? We go through different grade schools. We have college, 4-year degree. We have a postgraduate degree like master's and PhD. We have a really strong educational system and much more than 2,500 years ago. There's always room for improvement, of course, but if you compare what we have today to 2,500 years ago, it's much improved. That they didn't have this kind of well-established educational system like we do now, right? So 2,500 years ago, the way you would learn is from your elders in the village and from your parents and your grandparents and your aunts and uncles. That's how you learned about the world around you. So as growing up as a child, we would just be staying in our home. We'd be right along, helping mom and dad carry water from the well. We would be planting crops. We would be harvesting crops. We'd be learning how to make our own clothing and things like this. And that's how we grew up. And we just learned how to kind of live our life through the people around us. We didn't go off to school the way that we do nowadays and learn in the way that we do today. So during the lifetime of the Buddha, people would grow up in the home with their parents, and that's how they would learn about the world around them. With the Buddha, when he was teaching, people were leaving from their homes to come join him to be able to learn about this path to enlightenment. People would leave their life behind. Sometimes very early in life, 5, 6 years old, they would leave their family, and their family was supportive of that, to be able to go study with the Buddha. Sometimes people did it when they were older, in their teens or their 20s or 30s or what have you. So the Buddha was essentially like an adopted father to these people. And in some cases, even when people were older than him, they were still learning with him and they looked to him for wisdom. So the Buddha wasn't just only teaching them about this path to enlightenment. He was teaching them other things too that were important for them for their path to enlightenment, because the path to enlightenment is all about cultivating wisdom about the world around you. And one of the things that people didn't have wisdom about is, how do beings actually come into this world, right? How do these nagas are snakes. That's what we were talking about before. How do these snakes actually come into the world? How are they brought into the world? And the Buddha is saying there's some of them that are born by eggs, some are come through the womb, some are born through moisture, and some are born through this spontaneous birth. So he's teaching a little bit about science here, because these individuals didn't have that ability to learn those kinds of things. So I understand some of these things, but I've never seen a snake that was born spontaneously, right? That's just kind of like poof, and here they are, right? But apparently the Buddha is saying that he's aware of this, right? So these are things that, in order to be able to actually teach it, you need to be able to independently verify it. And I haven't independently verified that. So I can't say with 100% certainty that I've seen that occur. But scientists tell us that 99% of the beings that once existed in the animal realm no longer exist today. What we see in terms of animals only represents 1% of the animals that once existed on this planet. So I don't know if out of that 99%, if something was occurring like this, but nonetheless, you understand the background of why the Buddha is teaching something like this in his teachings, that he's helping these individuals to learn about the world around them. And nowadays, we have a strong educational system that's helping us to do that to a certain extent. So today, what we understand about snakes coming into the world is far beyond and much more prevalent in the world than it was 2,500 years ago. 2,500 years ago, that wouldn't have been common knowledge of how beings come into the world, where you guys probably already know, like, yeah, they come into the world through eggs, or beings come into the world through the womb or through moisture. Moisture is like maggots or things like this are born through that kind of method. So do you guys have any questions on this particular discourse? No questions? Okay. Yeah, it's kind of something that we don't typically see. Okay. Would someone like to read this one? This is chapter 33. Yeah, go ahead, Rachel. Sometimes people are shy, right? By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't be shy anymore.
Naga's cause and reason for observing the Uposatha. Here, monks, some egg-born Nagas think thus. In the past, we acted undecidedly in body, speech, and mind. Having done so with a breakup of the body, after death, we were reborn in the company of egg-born Nagas. If today we practice good conduct of body, speech, and mind, then with a breakup of the body, after death, we shall be reborn in a happy destination, in a heavenly world. Come now, let us practice good conduct of body, speech, and mind. This, monk, is the cause and reason why some egg-born Nagas here observe the Uposatha and relinquish concern for their bodies. The same is repeated for the other 3 types of Nagas.
Okay, so first let me explain to you guys what this is. What this is a certain period of time that happens about once every 7 to 8 days, where the Buddha would teach people to kind of observe a higher quality of practice. There's certain practices that the Buddha taught, and then during certain times of the month and certain times of the year, he would teach people to kind of increase the level of dedication to good, wholesome moral conduct. Because whatever moral conduct you have, whatever you put out, that's what's going to come back to you. So if you're bitter, harsh, and hostile, for example, to your mom and your dad and your brothers and your sisters and your boss and your coworkers, that's what's going to come back to you. So the Buddha teaches you, as part of his core teachings, to be able to practice in a wise way where you're not being bitter, harsh, and hostile to people. But you need to be able to learn how to do that, right? But then during this period of time, about every 7 to 8 days, he would kind of teach you to kind of observe this higher level of conduct. The idea is that if you do that for a few days, now that'll have a tendency to last for longer. Because just observing that higher level of conduct for 2 or 3 days isn't going to magically transform anything about your life. But if that 2 or 3 days can turn into a week or two or a month or two or a year or 3 years or 5 years that you're actually practicing that good, wholesome moral conduct, that's what's going to produce the wholesome results in your life. And while here, this particular discourse is talking about being reborn into the heavenly world, that's not the ultimate goal of the teachings of the Buddha. Oftentimes when you learn teachings like this, there's a lot of beliefs, and the goal is to have a really wonderful afterlife. After you're done with this life, have a really good life then. That's not what the teachings of the Buddha are about. The teachings of the Buddha are about getting to a wonderful life now, in this life, right? Why wait until after this life to get to a wonderful life? Create that wonderful life for yourself now. That's what the teachings of the Buddha are all about. So as you're learning, growing, and developing on this path and cultivating wisdom, you will see that the condition of your mind in your life is gradually improving, because your mind's going to be getting more and more peaceful. Your relationships are going to be getting more and more harmonious, because you know situations where you were once angry and sad and frustrated or agitated or annoyed, and you'll have those same exact experiences, but your mind will be completely peaceful and joyful in those same situations. So you'll be able to see your mind gradually improving if you're learning and practicing the actual true teachings of the Buddha. Again, this is volume 11. This isn't actually seeing the actual teachings of how to improve your day-to-day life. This is just information about the cycle of rebirth. That's what we're studying now. But if you'd like to get involved into the detailed teachings where you can actually see how to improve your day-to-day life, that's where you can take some of these other courses and programs that I share. So do you guys have any questions on this particular discourse where the Buddha is kind of reminding people about this improvement of their good, moral, wholesome conduct? Let me see if we have anything online here. Yeah, you have a question, Eamon? Looks like we have something coming in on YouTube too.
Could you just elaborate a little on the last 2 lines?
The one that says, this monk is the cause and reason why some egg-born Nagas observe the upasa and relinquish concerns for their bodies. Okay, so in the animal realm, it really almost doesn't matter, right? Because these beings can't get to enlightenment, and they're going to need to go through multiple existences in the animal realm to get to the point where they can get back to the human realm. In order to get to enlightenment. Depending on what existence you're in the animal realm, whether it's a snake or a lion or a tiger or something like this, versus like a rabbit or a turtle or an elephant, you'll have increased opportunities to be able to get to the human realm if you are in one of those existences like a rabbit or a turtle or something like this, because they tend to not harm other animals, right? Like a rabbit it's still an animal, but it's not killing in order to eat, right? So it doesn't have that fierce anger like a lion or a tiger. So here what they're basically saying is these animals are basically, they don't care about this animal existence. They don't care about this physical body in the animal existence. They're just trying to get to a better existence beyond the animal realm, because the animal realm is almost irrelevant if you're there, because you can't actually get to enlightenment from that existence. And the ultimate goal would be able to get to this enlightened mental state. So we have some questions here on YouTube. Tom says, Dear Master, can one pray to Buddha for help? you can do whatever you would like to do, but that's not going to help you. So if somebody would like to pray to the Buddha, they can, but that's not what the Buddha taught, and it's surely not going to help you. At one point, the Buddha taught where people were praying. He was saying, people pray for wealth, people pray for fame, people pray for peacefulness, people pray for a long life. He says, instead of praying for these things, why don't you practice the way to obtain these things, right? If you would like to have wealth, you're going to need to make decisions, cause and effect, wise decisions to be able to get to wealth. You're not going to be able to pray your way to wealth. Or if you would like to have a long life, you can't pray your way to a long life. You're going to need to make wise decisions about things like food intake, your exercise, how you treat people around you, how you train your mind. You're going to need to make wise decisions to be able to get to that long life. He says in his teachings, he says, if it was as easy as praying to be able to obtain the things that we would like to obtain in this life, he said, who among us would lack for anything? Right? Think about that for a second. If it was so easy for us to obtain what we would like in life, and we could just pray and magically it would come to us, who among us would lack for anything? Because we would just pray and we would instantly get whatever it is that we would want in life. And it's just not possible. So a lot of people are in this delusion or this lack of wisdom or this unknowing of true reality, thinking you can pray your way to a better life. And you can see that it just doesn't work. The way to get to a better life is through cultivating wisdom, making improved decisions, and then you will experience improved results. And that's why the Buddha focused people on cultivation of wisdom, not praying or rituals or ceremonies or anything like that. This same individual says, Dear Master, what is the correct way to address you in English and Thai? You can refer to me however you like. There's no particular way that I would ask for anybody to talk to me. The name that was given to me at birth was David. So if you'd like to refer to me that way, you're more than welcome to. And other people refer to me in other different ways. So I don't tell people how they should or shouldn't refer to me. You can refer to me however you like. It's really up to you. Okay. Did you have a question? I saw you get a mic. Yeah. I don't know your name. I haven't met you before.
Oh, okay. I was in temples and I have seen people making wishes. Mm-hmm. So what's the difference with praying for Buddha and making wishes? Because then wishes is also a wish. It's not something that you're cultivating but on yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's a lack of wisdom that when you're in a temple, you're going to be coming in contact with lots of different people, and not everybody has studied the original words of the Buddha. It's, considered that there's 500 million people in the world that consider themselves Buddhist. But out of those 500 million people, very, very few people study with the original words of the Buddha. I don't know what country you come from, but oftentimes people have a background of Christianity or Muslim teachings or things like this. And there's like one book, and actually inside the Bible that's about this thick, there's actually 66 books inside of one book, right? Here with the teachings of the Buddha, we have 45 books that are this thick. And for the longest time, these books have been hidden, not intentionally, but just inadvertently, because that they're so costly to print out that the average person doesn't have access to this. Even the average temple doesn't have access to this. I've been to over 200 temples in my life, and I've only ever been to one that shares the original words of the Buddha. And that's less than 1%, right? So that's why this book series, the way I titled it, is it's called The Words of the Buddha, The Path to Enlightenment, Revealing the Hidden, because the average Thai person would have to spend about 3 months of their salary to get a printed version of the Pali Canon. And most people don't have a book set worth 3 months of their salary. So the average temple, the average Thai person, they don't have access to the original words. So you will see people go into these temples and they will feed the statues. They will pray to the statues. They will think that the Buddha is literally sitting there and those statues represent the Buddha. You will see people doing all kinds of things that aren't true reality. But the thing about Thailand is that enough of the teachings have integrated into their culture that they learn these teachings kind of growing up. So even though they might have a lack of wisdom in one particular area, area where they might be having wishes or prayers to the Buddha. On another side, they're learning like good, wholesome moral conduct and how to interact with people in polite and loving and respectful and kind ways. And that's one of the reasons why people enjoy coming to Thailand so much, because the people here tend to treat you very, very well, because that's what they learned growing up. So you will find in a lot of these temples that they're not practicing the true teachings of the Buddha. And that's one of the reasons why you see they're empty, because what would be wonderful is if all these temples were full with teachers and with students that were learning. But when you go around to these temples, they're all empty, right? Because people aren't learning the original teachings of the Buddha. This is exactly the point that the Buddha described during his lifetime. He said at this point in history, we would be at this low point of society where people would lack wisdom of his teachings. They wouldn't even understand what he taught. He talked about these 500-year cycles that the world would go through. And we just ended the last 500-year cycle where he said people would be arguing and fighting and completely misunderstanding his teachings. And that's exactly what we see. So that's why you see what you see, is that people are going into the temples and they're not necessarily learning. The monks aren't necessarily learning. You know, the Thai people, they're very dedicated to the teachings of the Buddha, and they will go and they will support ordained practitioners and make offerings of food and clothing and money and resources no matter what. And they will support these individuals. And they've become somewhat complacent, I would say, where during the lifetime of the Buddha, he encouraged people to only make offerings to people who were deeply practicing the teachings. He talks about these 4 stages of enlightenment, and he says that basically you should find somebody who's in one of these 4 stages of enlightenment or practicing to get into one of those 4 stages of enlightenment, make offerings to them. People who have good virtuous behavior, good moral conduct, people who are actually sharing the teachings with other people to be able to help them get to enlightenment. But that's not what we see, where the Thai people are actually just making offerings to anybody and everybody. And now we see it kind of at this low point that the Buddha was talking about. So when you see those kinds of things, if you don't know what the Buddha taught, you can just understand that those people haven't been exposed to that, and that's what they're choosing to do. And we don't need to judge them or look down on them or think anything negative of them, but just understand that that's where they're at in their practice. But if you are learning and practicing the true teachings of the Buddha, you will see the condition of your mind gradually improving and your life improving, and you'll know what are the true teachings. And if other people don't, that's up to them. You know, that's their journey to enlightenment, but you focus on your journey to enlightenment. Yes, sir. And yes, sir. Yeah, I see a bunch of hands.
So if you're reborn into the animal realm, a rabbit or a tiger or something, what consciousness do you have as an animal to know that you want to get back to the human realm?
Yeah, so each consciousness is a brand new consciousness. And the word consciousness is just another word for the word mind. So if we just use the word mind, so each mind in each existence is brand new. It's a new existence. Even though we call it the cycle of rebirth, there's really nothing being reborn. It's a brand new body and it's a brand new mind every single time, because the lifetime of the Buddha, or at least what we see in the historical records, he uses the word samsara. That's the word that he uses. And we translate that into English as the cycle of rebirth. But if you look at what the Buddha is talking about with samsara, it's a new existence every single time. Brand new body, brand new mind. So a better way to think about this is the cycle of new existence, that there's a new existence every single time, and the body and the mind is completely unique and new, but the cravings and residual memories from your previous life will be in the mind. So it's possible for an animal to have some memories of their human life, right, and still have that and retain that, but we can't communicate with the animal to know that that's what they're experiencing. But there's human beings who have memories of their past lives in these other realms. That's how the Buddha knew that these other realms existed, and so do other people, is that there's memories from when you were in these realms. So you can have vivid memories of when you were in the animal realm, for example, as a human being. And the same thing is happening in the other direction too. Beings that were once human are being reborn in the animal realm, and they can retain some of their memories from their human life. This is where, if you've ever seen any animals, like I've seen dogs walking on 2 legs before, They have all four legs, but they stand up and they walk like a human, right? And you can see other very humanistic type characteristics in animals that some of them will function that way. And you can also see some humans that function very much like an animal, right? So you can see it in both directions. So that's where it's coming from, is that the residual memories from their previous life are in that new mind, and now their mind is remembering what they've experienced in the past and wanting to be reborn. Yeah, because they knew that, oh my goodness, I lost this opportunity to be able to get to enlightenment. Let me try to get back to that so that I can now improve my life from there. It just takes a second for it to engage. Yeah. Just got to be patient with it.
Okay, so and what is it that determines that an animal would come back to a human realm rather than dying and coming back in a lower or equal realm?
Sure. At the time of your death, whatever the status of the pollution of your mind is, that's what's determining where you're reborn. So if you haven't gotten to enlightenment and you still have pollution in your mind, there's a certain level of pollution in your mind. And now, based on that, you will be reborn in an appropriate realm, in an appropriate location within that realm. So each one of us chose not to get to enlightenment in our last life. We might not even know it existed in our last life. But for one reason or another, we're now in contact with these teachings now. But in the past, we chose not to do that. And because we weren't training our mind, the pollutions of our mind were at certain levels. And then when we died, that determined where we were reborn next. And we must have experienced something beneficial in our previous life, because we would have never got here as a human being if we weren't doing something somewhat beneficial, either as a human or a heavenly being or as an animal. You can even go from the hell realm into the human realm and even into the heavenly realm as well. So at some point in our multiple countless lives, we've been gradually working, because like, say for example, you're a lion and you're very fierce and very aggressive and hostile and bitter, but then say your next life you're born as a rabbit, right? And now your mind's a little bit more docile, a little bit more kind, a little bit more friendly, right? And now with that particular consciousness at the time of death, that being is more likely to be reborn into the human realm than that lion or that tiger. So it's the status of the pollutions of your mind at the time of death that determine which realm you're born into and in what situation you're born into. Whether we're impoverished or in an affluent family or rich or wealthy or what have you.
Hello. I just have a follow-up question, because you were saying that Buddha says there's going to be something every 500 years, and now it's like the low point. So do you think Buddha actually can predict the future?
Yeah, a Buddha can know the future. That's not the basis of their teachings. They're not going to just go around and start telling everybody what the future is. They're helping them to get to peace and joy in the present moment. But an individual, not only a Buddha, but actually enlightened beings, and even people before enlightenment, they can sometimes know the future. It's not destiny. It's not fate. What it is your mind can see a point in time in the future, and you can know what that point in time is. It's still cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect that's leading to that, but your mind can actually see a point in the future. So the Buddha talked about these 500-year cycles, and he described what they were. And if you look at history, it happened exactly the way that he talked about it, including where we are today. So he talked about that, and he talked about some other things during his life. There was very few, but he did give some predictions during his life, and they've come true the way that he talked about them.
Interesting. Thanks.
Yep.
It's on. Oh, thanks. This was 2,500 years ago, and 500-year cycles. So have we reached the end of his predictions of what's next? Like, we don't have any idea what comes after this last end of 500-year cycle of fighting and misunderstanding?
Yeah, we do. He said that at the end of that 500-year cycle that there would be a new Buddha that would come into the world, restore his teachings back into the world, and then the world would once and all, finally understand his teachings. That the entire world would then have the ability to be able to get to enlightenment. So these 500-year cycles is that at the time of his death, which was 483 BCE. That's what most people date it to, 483 BCE. The first 500-year cycles, he said people would be very strong in his teachings, and essentially there'd be a lot of people getting to enlightenment. The second 500 years, he said people would be really strong in meditation, and they'd be meditating a lot. The third 500 years, he said that there'd be a lot of scholarly works that were going to be writing about his teachings, and that's exactly what we see. We see all these publications during that period of time where scholars were looking at what he taught and they were writing about it. The fourth 500 years, he talked about people would be really big in generosity and towards his teachings, and that's when we see all these temples in Thailand that were pretty much being built between 500 to 1,000 years ago. If you go around and talk to the temples, pretty much all of them were built during that period of time. So massive amounts of land and resources were being donated to be able to support his teachings coming into the world. And then that last 500 years, which was basically from 2017 and before, right, that 500-year cycle, he said that people would be utterly confused about his teachings, and there'd be fighting and feuding, and people would be arguing about what it is that he actually taught. And then at that point, the year 2017, he said that's where the new Buddha would start to appear in the world. And you shouldn't expect that individual to get on the news and start, declaring that they are a Buddha and things like that, because that's not the way a Buddha functions. But nonetheless, that's what he said, that there would be this individual that would come into the world and restore the teachings. It's actually, for a Buddha, it's actually better that people don't know who this individual is, because then they're able to actually help people more readily. Because if you knew who a Buddha was, like say there was a certain mark on their head or a certain turn of their nose or their ear, and everybody knew that this person was a Buddha, people would probably be on their best behavior when they're around that person, right? And one of the powers of a Buddha is that they can observe the quality of a student's mind, and then they can offer them teachings to be able to help them to be able to make progress on the path. So if everybody knew with 100% certainty that this person is a Buddha, then that person's power to be able to observe the quality of their student's mind would be rendered useless. And this is one of the reasons why a Buddha can help countless people get to enlightenment during their life, because people don't know who this person is, and they can observe the quality of their mind. But what you'll see over the course of that person's life is more and more and more and more people will be learning with them, and more people will be getting to enlightenment as a result of that person's teachings, and countless people will get to enlightenment. So that's what the Buddha talked about, is this individual would restore his teachings. And you can know that what a Buddha is there's three things that are the determining factors of a Buddha. They get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people, and countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. Then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So if an individual can get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides, this is a huge feat, right? If they're able to do that, surely they can start teaching without a public announcement and making it known to everybody. They will know how to start sharing their teachings with countless people without needing a public announcement or anything like that. So this is what the Buddha shared, and this is what would occur based on his predictions and what he would have said that would occur. And you can see this in his teachings, that it talks about these 500-year cycles and these other things that I'm sharing. Mm-hmm. All right. No more questions? Okay. So what I think I'm going to do then is just end class right here by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you. Nice to share the teachings of the Buddha with all of you guys. Thank you for those of you online who joined us as well. If you guys would like to learn more, as I shared this afternoon at 1 p.m., that's actually an excellent place for people to start. This stuff here is not where somebody would typically start. This afternoon, I'm going to be starting from the very, 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 very beginning and helping you guys to understand the teachings kind of from afar. And then we're going to go into his very first teaching, which will help you understand the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And 4 simple statements I'm going to be able to walk you through in a way that you can independently verify what's going on within your own mind. And you'll be able to see that for yourself. So if you'd like to join, that would be a great opportunity. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., I'm going to be sharing chapter 1 from this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. That chapter is titled Universal Teachings, Love, No Harm, and Good Morals. This is where I'm going to help you to be able to see that not only the Buddha, but there were some other teachers that have come along too, like Jesus Christ, Prophet Muhammad, even Hinduism and things like this, that have shared some teachings that are somewhat similar to what the Buddha taught. There's this commonality. There's kind of like this umbrella that kind of encompasses all these teachings. And I'm going to help you to be able to see what those 3 universal teachings are that you're going to see across all of these things. I'm going to be teaching that tomorrow at 9 a.m. I have classes here at 9 a.m. and I do it from home at 9 p.m. So tonight I'm going to be teaching this same class at 9 p.m. from home. But when I do it from home, I don't have a live audience there, but I live stream it and we'll have live audience online. And I do 10 chapters. I go through 10 chapters. So if you're really interested in learning the words of the Buddha in depth, that would be a great class for you. And then tomorrow at 9 a.m. I'll be teaching here and live streaming. And then tomorrow evening, I also do it from home at 9 p.m. and I live stream that. So as you guys move around the world, there should be a live class available for you where you could either tune in when I'm teaching here at the temple, or you could tune in while I'm teaching at home. And if you can't watch the live class, they're all recorded. So YouTube, Facebook, our podcast, all of these things are a place where you could be able to learn the teachings, and you can do it at no cost. You can even get personal guidance from me to be able to help you so that you can heal from what hurt you, so that you never need to hurt again. Because it's not fun walking around with sadness and anger and frustration and all these other feelings. You can actually overcome all of this and essentially evolve into a better and better human being. So again, thank you all for joining, and perhaps we'll see you guys in a future class. Be well and take care. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.